Meeting is hereby called to order. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the November 12th teleconference meeting of Memphis and Shelby County Land Use Control Board. My name is Mary Sharp, and I will be serving as your chairperson today. We will begin this morning's meeting with a roll call. Mr. Whitehead, would you proceed, please?
Yes, ma'am. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. Mr. Fleming?
Here.
Mr. Gill?
Here.
Vice Chair Lyles Wallace?
Here.
Mr. McKinnon?
Here.
Ms. O'Connell?
Here.
Dr. Pritchard?
Here.
Mr. Thomas?
Here.
Mr. Tolles?
Here.
Ms. Wilbanks?
Here.
And Chair Sharp?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you, Mr. Whitehead. Everyone should already have a copy of today's agenda for this telephonic meeting. Anyone who wished to be a speaker on today's agenda has already filled out the attendance speaker's card and is in the hands of Mr. Whitehead or his staff. When it is time for you to speak, he or his staff will call your name, will unmute you at the appropriate time for you to speak. Please wait about 10 seconds before speaking so you can be properly unmuted and so that we can hear all of your remarks. At this point, I would like to read our conflict of interest statement. The adopted policy of the Land Use Control Board requires that any member of the Land Use Control Board recuse himself or herself from any participation in the discussion or voting on any matter on the meeting's agenda in which he or she may have direct or indirect personal interest. The members shall, in this teleconference, let us know verbally they are recusing themselves during deliberation on any matter from which they have recused themselves. An abstention may substitute for recusal for the purpose of maintaining a quorum. I would now like to get the approval of our minutes from the last Land Use Control Board October 8th meeting.
Chairman Sharp, I move approval of those minutes. Second.
I have some discussion. Personally, I see where we left off the minutes that our director made a report. Is that significant enough to add to our meeting minutes?
Madam Chair, if you would make a motion to amend the minutes so then we can include a brief report or a summary of the director's comments, we'll start doing that every month. I think we inadvertently left that off this month.
Okay, I would like to amend the minutes of the meeting to include the Director Zena's report, summary, synopsis thereof.
Second.
I hear a second. Okay. So would we vote on the amendment first, or will we vote on the approval of the minutes of the meeting as amended?
If there's no objection to that amendment, we can just go straight to the main motion to approve.
Okay. Let's go back to the main motion to approve the minutes of the October 8th meeting as amended. And we do have do we need another second?
Second. No, we have the motion and made and seconded. So I think under the executive order, Madam Chair, and we caught this last month, that all votes, presumably including minutes, are to be done by roll call. So if you're ready, I'll go ahead and do the roll call vote.
Yes, sir, I am ready.
Okay. Mr. Fleming?
Aye.
Mr. Gill?
Yes.
Vice Chair Lyles Wallace?
Yes.
Mr. McKinnon?
Yes.
Ms. O'Connell?
Yes.
Dr. Pritchard?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas? Mr. Tolles?
Yes.
Ms. Wilbanks,
Yes.
Mr. Thomas,
Yes.
and Chair Sharp.
Yes.
That's
Thank
10
you.
ayes.
Thank you. Motion passes. Now we're ready for our director's report from Director Zena.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, everyone. For this month's report, I wanted to provide an annual progress report on the comprehensive plan and preview an annual plan update that will be forthcoming. This body originally adopted the Memphis 3.0 plan actually in February of 2019. The City Council did not adopt it until December 3rd, so we're counting our annual progress and our annual update from the date of the Council's adoption. So first, over the last year, the plan has been implemented through, in a number of ways, but first through incorporating language and goals of the plan into other plans that the city has conducted for things like sewer, stormwater, parks, and streets. So right now, for example, the city is undertaking the preparation of a sewer master plan, a parks master plan, and an update to its stormwater manual. And each of those are being conducted by divisions other than ours, but planning and development does have staff that are working on those projects to ensure that the comprehensive plan is appropriately guiding their work. The division did co-lead the preparation of a complete streets plan over the last year with the city's division of engineering to merge what was the city's complete streets design manual that the engineering department had led with the comprehensive plan's street map. So those two things will be in harmony in one document, which will be proposed to be included in the comprehensive plan, similar to how the transit vision is in the upcoming plan update that we'll submit in the next couple of months. And that will be along with a climate action plan that the city and county have worked on as well. Second area of implementation is by public investment. The two primary vehicles here are the capital improvement program, which the city has instituted preferential points in the scoring of CIP projects that serve to implement the comprehensive plan, but also the creation of two new funds, one of them the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, the second the Community Catalyst Fund, both of which were established by City Council in the FY20 budget. In particular, for the sort of dedicated funding stream of Memphis 3.0, the Community Catalyst Fund has been used to implement projects that were not only identified in the Memphis 3.0 plan, but also some small area plans that our comprehensive planning department has developed since. At this point, that focus has been in areas like Raleigh, Whitehaven, and Binghamton. We saw a piece of that Raleigh small area plan last month associated with one of the proposed developments on the agenda. But again, as part of the plan, the annual plan update that we're going to be bringing, we'll propose to adopt those small area plans as a part of the comprehensive plan. And then finally, and perhaps more directly to this body's role in plan implementation, is regulating consistency with the plan through development review decisions, rezonings, and text amendments to the UDC. So related to the UDC, last month we highlighted the comprehensive zoning change that was approved for Lamar Avenue, and then next month you'll see this comprehensive zoning change proposal sent from the City Council for portions of Summer Avenue. In addition, of course, there are text amendments in the upcoming ZTA that help support implementation of the plan. I believe Mr. Whitehead will touch on some of those. But many of the additional comprehensive plan update changes that we will bring have to do with modifications to the future land use map and the land use category descriptions that staff relies on for consistency analysis. Those changes that we're going to propose are largely based on feedback we're getting throughout the last year in the form of month-to-month development review decisions that you and the City Council are making. And as you know, for each case, staff is providing a statement, an analysis of consistency with the staff report, and they discuss it in their presentation. Due to the Council's adoption of the plan last December, those development review decisions that you're making and that City Council makes must be consistent with the plan. So why, again, this is the primary means of plan implementation that a body such as yours has to ensure that the plan is being enacted. Now, we don't expect that the Land Use Control Board of the City Council will always agree with the staff's analysis of consistency, but it's important that we know why you disagree when that happens, so we understand your finding of consistency not only for the sake of each case, but also, again, so we can get some feedback that's needed to help influence future plan updates. So to conclude, I look forward to bringing this forthcoming plan update to you to address many of these items. With that, I'll turn the floor back over to you, Madam Chair, but I'm happy to answer any questions that any members may have.
Thank you, Director Zena. Are there any questions? Do you have any questions?
This is J.C. McKinnon. I had a question. I wanted to know what we'll be able to see the actual updates. Is it somewhere online that we may be able to see your changes?
That will be filed based on the normal application filing deadlines. At this point, we anticipate that we'll file at the December deadline. And once that takes place, Mr. McKinnon, we will make sure that that you see that.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Are there any other questions for Director Zena? Again, thank you so much for the update. And we will go to Mr. Whitehead if there are not any more questions. May I please get a Secretary's report, Mr. Whitehead, for this month and an explanation of today's procedures?
Yes, ma'am. There were a few cases reviewed by the City Council since the last time we met, but with all respect to those cases, I don't know if any of them were very significant. So I'll go straight to the procedures. We will begin this meeting with the consent agenda for those items where no one in the audience or with the board is requesting an individual public hearing. After the consent agenda is established and approved, we'll move on to the regular agenda. And I do want to make a note, I sent the body an email with regard to agenda item number 4 this morning. We did have a speaker and we did have an applicant contesting our conditions. And since that email was sent, Madam Chair, which was half an hour ago, I guess, the applicant is requesting a hold. So I do want to make that point very quickly, which means I can forego much of the rest of my discussion because we will have no public hearings. The items 1 through 7 we will hear on consent, and number 8, I wanted to give a brief update from the time I originally drafted those zoning text amendments. But items 1 through 7 will be consent or as approval or consent as hold, as we originally discussed, with the exception that number 4, Ms. Wilbanks, will be consent as hold. With that, Madam Chair, I'll turn the floor back over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Whitehead. Okay, with our procedures now explained, I would like to now introduce Ms. Lisa Wilbanks, who is this morning's consent agenda chairperson. Ms. Wilbanks will read those items which will be on the consent agenda. Those items where requests have been made for the public hearing will not be placed on the consent agenda. In this case, that would be 0, except for those cases that will be held in abeyance until a future meeting. Ms. Wilbanks, would you proceed, please?
Yes, ma'am. Item number 1. Resolution of the Land Use Control Board that continuation of meeting telephonically is necessary to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the citizens of Memphis and Shelby County in light of the COVID-19 outbreak, pursuant to Section A1 of Governor Lee's Executive Order number 65. Item number 2, case S20-25 in Binghamton. The request is a 3-lot major subdivision at the northwest corner of Madison and Bingham. Staff recommendation is approval with conditions. Item number 3, case SAC 20-21 in Binghamton. Request is the physical closure of part of the Autumn Avenue right-of-way east of Lipford Street and north of Sam Cooper Boulevard. Staff recommendation is hold for 1 month. Item number 4, case PD 20-13 in Cooper Young. The request is a planned residential development at 795 Tanglewood with reduced minimum lot size and minimum building setback. Staff recommendation is a hold. Item number 5, case PD 90-317 in Bridgewater. The request is a site plan approval for warehouse and distribution center at the north side of Goodlet Farms Parkway, plus or minus 1,045 feet west of Appling Road. Staff recommendation is approval with conditions. Item number 6, case PD 16-13 in Cordova. The request is a modification to sign conditions at 200 Parkway. Staff recommendation is approval with conditions. Item number 7, case PD 20-14 in the University District. Request for apartments on the west side of Deloach between Poplar and Central. Staff recommendation is hold for 1 month. And that is our consent.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ms. Wilbanks. Now so we will put all on consent agenda if approved except 8. So can I get a motion, please, to approve the consent agenda as read?
Yes, ma'am. Move to approve item number 1. Move to approve item number 2, case S-20-25. Item number 3, case SAC 20-21. Item number 4, case PD 20-13. Item number 5, case PD 90-317. Item number 6, case PD 16-13. And item number 7, case PD 20-14.
Second.
Thank you. Do I hear a second?
Yes, Pritchard.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Pritchard. Is there any discussion? Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we will do a roll call.
Mr. Fleming.
Aye.
Mr. Gill.
Aye.
Vice Chair Lyles Wallace.
Yes.
Mr. McKinnon.
Aye.
Ms. O'Connell.
Yes.
Dr. Pritchard.
Yes.
Mr. Thomas.
Yes.
Mr. Tolles.
Aye.
Ms. Wilbanks.
Yes.
And Madam Chair.
Yes.
We have 10 ayes.
Motion carries. Now will we start our regular agenda with Dr. Pritchard announcing your number 8, or will you go right into your number 8?
Let's let Dr. Pritchard introduce it.
Zoning Text Amendment 20-1, Annual Text Amendment to the Memphis and Shelby County Unified Development Code. Staff planner is Josh Whitehead, the zoning administrator, and the staff recommendation is hold for 1 month.
Thank you, Dr. Pritchard. As you mentioned, this is going to be a 1-month hold. I hope I'm requesting a 1-month hold. The purpose of that 1-month hold is to provide an additional 30-day public review period for some of the responses I made to public comments made during the 60-day initial public review period. So I just wanted to go over those very quickly because these will probably be the focus of the discussion, if there is any, during next month's meeting. A, and B, because I wanted to piggyback on something that Director Zena said during his director's report. So if we could go to the first slide. I did make a quick slide deck for these agenda items. Madam Chair, if you look at your staff report, I provided a kind of an executive summary on page 1 of the staff report, listing the items that are discussed in the balance of the staff report. And we are first going to discuss agenda item number 4. This has to deal with consistency. And let's go to the next slide and one more slide. So this is looking at section 1.9, Madam Chair, we originally, I think originally reviewed and approved these amendments to Section 1.9, which currently is the section of the code that has been in the code since it was adopted in 2010 that provides direction for this body, the City Council, the County Commission, the Board of Adjustment, etc., when they're reviewing particular applications. Currently, it states that many of the small area plans, and including the Memphis 2000 plan, shall be considered when casting a vote on those items. Well, last year we proposed to make reference to the Memphis 3.0 plan. If you recall, that last ZTA, after it was voted upon by this body, it went to the City Council, and the City Council was not yet ready. They wanted to review the Memphis 3.0 plan for a few months, so the ZTA reference to Memphis 3.0 was dropped while that review period occurred. So this is basically putting that language back in, plus additional language based upon comments we received, and that is the red language. And let's just look at paragraph B very quickly. Determination of consistency. When making land use decisions, the boards and bodies responsible for making such decisions shall consider the decision criteria described in the Memphis 3.0 general plan and its determination of consistency. The following red language was based upon comments we received, and let me read it and then I'll explain it. The board and bodies are responsible for making their own determination of consistency, but shall consider the determination of consistency made by the Division of Planning and Development and any comments made by affected citizens and neighbors when doing so. The purpose of this language is to clarify that the division staff is not the be-all and say-all when it comes to consistency. It's just our recommendation and our opinion. And the Land Use Control Board and the City Council, which are having public hearings and casting their vote upon such public hearing, may have a different view, right? And so this clarifies that essentially the Land Use Control Board and the City Council, et cetera, can make their own determination of consistency. Again, and that could very well be based upon the staff report and or comments made by the citizens, the applicant, et cetera. Before we go to the next slide, I wanted to highlight the highlighted language in paragraph C, which talks about Memphis 3.0 shall be used as a guide for land use decisions, but shall not supersede the approval criteria and findings of fact required for individual land use decisions. Mr. Slide Advancer, will you please go to our next slide? This is a finding of fact cheat sheet that I have made and disseminated to the body in the past. Basically, it references the sections of the code that govern the land use decision. So let me explain this. I'll go to this table real quick, but let me explain what it means in the world of having a long-range plan, which we do now have. So the first couple items, a text amendment is a legislative decision. Is there a rational basis? That's also the test for a rezoning. These are legislative decisions. In other words, when you're amending the text or the map, that is treated the same way as it was when you originally adopted the text and the map, which now is nearly 100 years ago, right? It's just like any other piece of legislation. When the City Council increases the parking, the hourly meter from 50 cents to 75 cents, the courts will defer to the wisdom of the legislative body because it is a legislative decision. So an ordinance amendment, be it text, be it map, is treated the same way. Now, after those two first things get a little more complicated. Because on the rest, the code and case law and statutory law is asking this body, and in many times also the City Council, to make a finding on that particular case at that particular property. For instance, special use permits the test there is, will there be a substantial or undue adverse impact? So in addition to Memphis 3.0, let's say a proposal for a gravel pit. Well, that's a bad example because most of those are in the county. But a proposal for a auto sales establishment. It may be consistent. We may find that it's consistent with Memphis 3.0. But we could also find, and by we I mean staff or the board, could also find that it will have a substantial or undue adverse impact. And conversely, maybe it won't have a substantial undue adverse impact, but it is inconsistent. So you have to get a double yes to say yes, to vote yes. Plan developments, when we adopted plan developments in our charter, we took the special use permit language and then we added a little more language. So not only does it have that special use permit language that there shall be no adverse or undue effect or adverse impact, but it shall also exhibit a better design than is possible under the UDC. So the plan development requires extra findings of fact. Subdivisions, generally, the subdivision rule of thumb is, does it meet the zoning code and are there adequate public facilities? If it's in an older neighborhood and the contextual infill standards apply, then we look at are the lots compatible with the neighborhood regardless of whether they meet the bare minimums of the zoning code. Next one, right-of-way vacation. This goes back to a legislative decision that was determined. For a long while, we didn't know whether street closures were legislative or quasi-judicial. Those are the decisions that require a finding of fact for many years, but a closure at Reddick Road near Bud Davis Cadillac, if y'all remember that was about 15 years ago. The Court of Appeals of Tennessee finally answered that question and said street closures are legislative in nature. Special exceptions, these are same as special use permits, so I won't repeat that. And time extensions, basically, has the neighborhood changed since the original approval? In other words, is there any reason to state as a staff or as a body that the original findings of effect no longer apply? So why are we going through this? I think it behooves the record, if particularly in cases where the Land Use Control Board disagrees with staff, to really just put something on the record to use some of these magic words that are on this slide when it comes to the findings of fact, or some magic words from Memphis 3.0. Why do I say only, particularly in cases where the body disagrees with staff? Well, because if you're agreeing with staff, we've kind of already done that analysis in the staff report, so you could just say, I agree with staff and the findings that it made. But when you don't agree, that's when you have to just at least put, in my recommendation, put something on the record that you're finding this project to be consistent for the following reasons, and to have no adverse impact for the following reasons. Typically, this body's been pretty good at that. Next slide, and I'll go to the next few things next few items will be more expeditious, Madam Chair. Item 12, the original proposal was to drop the requirement for a local bond and just let the TDEC bond be the one that applies to gravel pits and landfills. Why are these items bonded? Well, it's to ensure that the sites, when the landfill or the gravel pit closes, that the site can be returned to some degree of acceptability. And why do we do that? Well, because sometimes landfill operators and gravel pit operators go bankrupt, right? They go bust, they disappear, their LLC disappears, right? So that's the purpose of the bond, so that the state and or the county can come in and replace the situation before as best as possible before the landfill or gravel pit was established. what I've done here is, because bonds sometimes don't really cover what it needs to cover, I have, in response to public commentary, returned the requirement that a local bond, in addition to the TDEC, the state bond, be applied for in these instances. What I have kept, however, is that a TDEC approved reclamation plan will, if someone files and gets approved a reclamation plan from TDEC, they needn't do the same for us, because quite frankly, TDEC is the subject matter experts when it comes to gravel pits and landfills. Item number 59, this is, if you looked at your staff report, this item, in addition to the one coming up, generated the most comments. This deals with duplicative applications. Number 59, as originally stated, said whatever item that is eligible for a special use permit, such as building height, extra building height, etc., those can also be processed as variances. Well, I've dropped that blanket everything because it's really unnecessary, A, and B, I think it does kind of shift perhaps too many applications to the Board of Adjustment. That said, however, the one thing that I do think should be retained in item 59, or one of the big things, is the fact that right now the Midtown overlay has this blanket special exception language that I'm afraid presents a problem when it comes to administration, because the Midtown overlay has so many provisions in it that are the same as the UDC code, that you could have the same regulation found in both the overlay and the balance of the code. One says it's processed this way, the other says it's processed that way. So what I've done is I've mirrored the eligible items eligible for special exceptions that are currently listed in the other overlays, the medical overlay and the university overlay, into the Midtown overlay. Again, I have shared this with the people who have opposed that, and we have the next month to garner feedback on that. Item number 64, we had proposed some changes to neighborhood association notification that I thought would increase neighborhood association notification by using the zip codes to which they are filed. But Dr. Nelson, in her letter, pointed out that oftentimes neighborhood associations are filed with a P.O. box that may be in a different zone zip code, but may also have, some of those post offices have unique zip codes to themselves, in which case using the zip code, the shared zip code between the site and the neighborhood association, really wouldn't do much good. So we've dropped that proposal. Number 68 had to deal with street closure notification. I agree with the comments shared that we should maintain the 500-foot notice, so that now that's universal across all application types. What my main intent here was to just match two incongruous sections of the code. And finally, Madam Chair, speaking of dealing with sections of the code that were maybe ambiguous, old lots. My proposal originally would have allowed, if Mr. Zena, you go to the next slide, will show the ramifications of the current interpretation. The current interpretation is, if you have a subdivision plat like the one that you just saw, you can take a house like this that perhaps sits on multiple lots, and next slide, redevelop it into much smaller lots because you had a recorded plat. And that is the current way we do things. The proposal that I would like to make for consideration by the board next month would be that we do allow that we do not allow this, and if I may read this, we would treat lots created by deed the same as lots created by plat. The reason I have been administering this differently because a plat is something more than a deed. A plat means it was reviewed by a government entity. What are we talking about? Maybe I should take a step back. That the zoning code has lot size and lot width requirements, right? That's one of the keystones of any zoning code. If you're in zoning district X, you have to have lots that are this wide and this many square feet. Okay. And the zoning code changes over the years, right? Sometimes lots get bigger in one zoning district, they get smaller in the other, so we have a lot of non-conforming lots. What this section, 10.5.1 of the code, says is if you have a lot created by deed or plat, provided it's owned individually from other properties, it can be, well, it's somewhat ambiguous. Some people interpret this section to say it cannot; those dormant lots cannot be reused. Some people say they can. Well, the purpose with this underlined language is to, for once and for all, clear the air, make it quite clear that it doesn't matter if you have a plat that was recorded by deed, plat, or whoever. It has to be, it cannot be, those dormant lots cannot be resurrected if they don't meet the minimum lot size requirements. The image that we showed earlier was kind of an extreme where you have a plethora of 25-foot lots. No zoning district, most zoning districts in Memphis do not allow 25-foot lots. That is kind of an extreme example, and I would probably argue that the Mount Arlington subdivision in Cooper Young is probably the largest example we have of that. And now that they are in a landmarks district, we've kind of avoided the situation where houses on multiple dormant lots are being torn down. But as I said, the underlined language would, for once and for all, prohibit that activity from happening. So, Madam Chair, I believe I have concluded our slide deck on this, and one of the purposes I wanted to share with this is to get any feedback from the body to take back to the drawing board if need be between now and next month. So with that, Madam Chair, I'll relinquish the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Whitehead. I am ready for a motion for number 8, and then during discussion, I assume we can give you any feedback, or do you want discussion before the motion?
I like a motion and then discussion.
Okay. Dr. Pritchard?
Move approval of zoning text amendment 20-1.
Second.
Was that Ms. Wilbanks?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Ms. Wilbanks. We have a motion and a second to approve ZTA 20-1. Is there any discussion?
It'll take a while to digest all this.
This is Jennifer O'Connell. I did want to say that I think that all of the work that you and your team, Josh, have been doing in adding clarification to the zoning and really, getting down to the. Oh, I'm so sorry. My dog is yelling at the roofers. Is super helpful. So I'm going to keep it short because it's so noisy here. But I want to thank you for all of the work that you're doing, and I think that all of these additions to the code is a very good thing.
Thank you.
Well, Madam Chair, if I may, obviously clarity helps us administer this code as well as our sister department that often finds itself administering and interpreting the code, the plans review section of the Office of Construction Code Enforcement. So that's number one on clarity. Number two is when we go to court, when we go to Chancery Court, and I think I've probably been to Chancery Court on zoning cases probably more than anyone alive other than Robert Rowling, our attorney that goes over there with me. it really helps one way or the other, whether you're defending the case or you're on the wrong side of the court's opinion or the right side of the court's opinion. Clarity really helps the court know exactly how to land. So those are the two big reasons that, if there's in ambiguity, we try to snuff it out at least once a year.
Okay.
I'd also like to, this is Brown Gill, I'd just like to say, similar to Jennifer, one, it takes a lot of work by you, Josh, and staff. But really, for neighbors' sake, I think it's important that people understand that the UDC is a living document that has to be updated regularly. And I think that y'all focus and effort it's hard work to do, but I think we all very much appreciate it. And it should happen regularly. So I just want to show our appreciation for it and all y'all's hard work. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion? Well, we're going to go back to the motion. The motion is really for a whole, for an approval for a whole. So
Yes.
That's correct, right, Dr. Pritchard?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
For a whole. Okay. All right. Are there any other questions? Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, we're ready for the roll call vote.
Mr. Fleming.
Aye.
Mr. Gill.
Yes.
Vice Chair Lyles Wallace.
Yes.
Mr. McKinnon.
Aye.
Ms. O'Connell.
Yes.
Dr. Pritchard.
Yes.
Mr. Thomas.
Yes.
Mr. Tolles.
Aye.
Ms. Wilbanks.
Yes.
And Chair Sharp.
Yes.
That's 10 ayes.
A motion carries for the whole of number 8. Okay, we're near the end of our meeting. If there's not anything else, we want to thank Mr. Whitehead and Mr. Zena for keeping us informed. I'd like to announce the birthdays of Ms. McConnell and Mr. Fleming at the end of this month. Happy birthday and happy Thanksgiving to everybody. And if we don't have any further notes and or discussion, I move to close this meeting. Meeting adjourned.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Great job, everyone. Thank you.